runs about an hour in length, so we'll have plenty of time at the end for questions. But feel free, if you do have some along the way, to utilize the Q&A feature or to post questions in the chat. So who are we? We are your Futureology team. We are a team of 4 counselors that oversee the Futureology program, which supports college and career readiness in CUSD. We have one-on-one appointments, group events, web-based events like this, and we also support your school guidance teams and all of the wonderful, awesome work that they do. In addition, I said we have a special guest joining us this evening. Her name is Rita Sultanian. She is the director of the Career and Reentry Center at Saddleback College. We're going to hear from Rita in just a little bit about creating your elevator pitch, which is an awesome skill that you're going to learn tonight as a part of entrepreneurial mindset. Tonight's agenda is pretty packed. We are going to cover what are 21st century skills, what are the attributes of an entrepreneur. We're going to learn about the gig economy and building your confidence to practice new skills. And then we're also going to work through some handouts about creating your elevator pitch. In the chat, I'm going to put the links to 2 of the handouts that we're going to be using this evening. One of them is a skills worksheet, which we're actually going to be using first. The second is our elevator pitch worksheet, which we are going to be using a little bit later into the presentation. You guys feel free to open and download those anytime. They were also linked in your confirmation and reminder email, so you might have seen them before. I'll also link them closer to when we're going to actually be using the handouts in just a bit. It would be helpful if you have a writing utensil, a pen or pencil handy, and then it will be a little bit easier to use those handouts as we push through some of the more interactive portions of this presentation. Your camera and your microphones are turned off. This is a webinar format. Again, you can utilize the Q&A feature if you have some questions, or in the chat as well. We'll try to respond to you wherever you ask a question. I have a little poll just to get us started today, which is just let us know a little bit more information about who's here with us tonight. So what grade are you currently in if you are joining us this evening? Ooh, we have a nice mix. Awesome. I'm going to give you guys about 10 more seconds to answer. We have just a few more people joining us. Great. We have a really nice mix. A lot of 9th graders joining us, which is wonderful. This might be your first Futureology event, which is awesome. You're off to a really great start, but you're already excited about learning about 21st century skills. So moving forward tonight, we're going to start by discussing what are 21st century skills. This is probably the #1 question we get as we put these workshops together or start talking about the world of work and career development. 21st century skills go by a lot of different names. They are essential skills, applied skills, employability skills, competencies, college and career readiness, but I think most often they're known as transferable or soft skills. They're knowledge, work habits, and character traits that are necessary to succeed in the rapidly changing world, and in particular, the rapidly changing world of work. The good news is just like any other subject, 21st century skills can be taught, practiced, and incorporated into any part of your everyday life. Tonight, the 21st century skill that we are talking about is entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurial mindset is a guiding set of practices. Remember those soft skills, they're a little bit harder to define and they transfer across all different types of work environments. Primary attributes of what an entrepreneurial mindset includes, it includes being self-motivated, seeking new knowledge and skills. It includes trying to gain greater work responsibilities. It includes a willingness to take risk and learn from mistakes in order to improve a product, a service, or a process. It thinks of new ways and ideas and new ways of doing things by drawing connections, comparisons, and combining different sources of information. An entrepreneurial mindset allows us to be open to new opportunities and ideas, and it begins the practice of active problem solving, skill application, and most importantly, showing confidence. There are a few differences between what we know of as a traditional entrepreneur or entrepreneurial mindset and something called an intrapreneur. So I want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time discussing those differences and what those things are and trying to define them appropriately. So an intrapreneur is someone who is an employee of an organization. So someone who is in charge of undertaking innovations of a product, service, or a process. They depend on the entrepreneur or the owner. So they work for a particular company or a corporate owner. They work under defined rules, corporation regulations, and their core objective is to increase the competitive strength of the market and the sustainability of the organization that they work for overall. An entrepreneur is what we typically think of when we think of entrepreneurial mindset. It includes a person who sets up their own business with a new idea or a concept. They are typically independent operations, they do not work for others, and they act as their own boss. The core objective for an entrepreneur is to innovate something new. I'm going to post another poll for you all as you look at these definitions and think, which one do you feel like you would be better suited for? I think almost always when we talk about entrepreneurship, the assumption is that you have to be the boss. You have to own your own business or innovate something new to have that type of skill set or have that type of mindset. And really, it's transferable across a corporation, like an entrepreneur, and having your own business, like an entrepreneur. So let's ask and see what you guys feel is more in line with what describes you. Are you guys interested in being an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur? I'll give you guys a few seconds to think about that and to answer those questions. Oh, we have quite a few of you guys, a nice mix here. I'm going to give you a few more seconds. So it looks like most of you are interested in being an entrepreneur or starting a business or innovation on your own, which is probably what drew you to this workshop to begin with. Again, entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are both vitally important to the working market. They operate in different ways, but they do a lot of the same things. And that's what an entrepreneurial mindset definitely demonstrates. So we did our little poll. Okay, now we're going to move forward into talking about the gig economy. I'm going to show a little video that walks us through what the gig economy is, why it's important, and what we can learn from the gig economy to make changes or learn new skills about being an entrepreneur.
For years, the norm for a job has been permanent full or part-time employment. But recently, more and more people are beginning to take on a variety of short-term jobs, also known as gigs. These include things like freelancing, temp jobs, jobs in the sharing economy, and more. All of these different jobs form something called the gig economy. The gig economy is beginning to take up a larger portion of the workforce, and studies show no sign of it slowing down. This is partially due to the evolution of technology. Companies are now able to hire workers anywhere in the world who can then easily telecommute and work remotely for them. Mobile apps have allowed businesses like Uber and Airbnb to grow an enormous amount of contract workers. And social media has given people the ability to market themselves and sell their products and services at a much cheaper cost than traditional advertising. It's hard to say exactly how the rise of the gig economy will affect and change the future of the job market, but we do know that both companies and workers will need to continue to adapt to it.
Goodwill Community Foundation, creating opportunities for a better life.
So welcome to the gig economy. So what is the gig economy? We just learned a really brief bit of information about it. The gig economy is a shift, and our full economic development is a workforce. It includes the fact that technology predominantly has altered the nature and how work is done in our country, but also on a global scale. So gone are the days of 40-year careers with guaranteed retirement. And that's not to be negative or to be a downer. It's the reality of what the gig economy creates in the working world. So many of you have an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent in particular who maybe had a stable career with minimal transitions for long periods of time. What the gig economy has allowed workers in the world of work to do is to transition into a much more flexible model. I can tell you that I don't think any of us in the education space thought a year from now that we would still be working in a digital space exclusively. That has a part to do with the gig economy, that we have the technology to be able to work from anywhere, doing a variety of tasks. The other part of the gig economy is that employers necessarily can't commit to hiring for long periods of time for full-time work. The reality is that full-time employers cost more than part-time or temporary employers. So it saves companies money in the long run. Teams are often assembled for a particular project, or team members are brought in with a specific skill set for a shorter period of time. Oftentimes, these team members are not necessarily employees, like I said, but they are contract workers, or they have a very specific skill set that is being asked for by the working world. So what is another term for the gig economy? It's the concept of freelancing. And I think that that's probably a term that more people in particular have heard before besides the gig economy. So in the US workforce alone, there are 53 million freelance workers. And it's estimated by 2020, and we're already past that, that more than half of the workforce will be freelancers or contract work. This means that employers are contracting with freelancers for short-term specific projects, like I described before, and these contractors are not employees and do not receive the same benefits as employees. So what are some of the examples of those benefits? If you are not a full-time or considered a full-time employee, you don't necessarily get paid time off. You also don't necessarily get a retirement account, or you don't get health insurance as a part of your contract work. There are situations where that is possible to negotiate as a part of your contract, but typically that coverage or benefit will end as soon as your contract ends with that particular company. So why should students care, or why is this important for you to understand as a part of entrepreneurial mindset? All of these people, 53 million freelance workers, are considered entrepreneurs. They own and market their own skills. There's a very, very good chance that you and anyone who's a part of our presentation tonight will do some type of freelance or contract work at some point in their career trajectory. It could be part-time, it could be temporary, or it could be full-time as you learn about the type of work that you'd like to do and the type of industry that you'd like to be in. So freelancers and contract workers, again, are their own businesses. So they are their own entrepreneurs. So how do entrepreneurs think, and what are transferable skills that benefit everyone? Entrepreneurs are always looking for opportunities. They seek out opportunities on their own. Entrepreneurs are also resourceful. They can make resources stretch to complete a project. Entrepreneurs are always cultivating their biggest asset, which is their network or their social capital. Another way to define a network or social capital is who you know, who is a part of your circle, who is a part of your adjacent circle that you could reach from to make connections and build your network. So we're going to talk a little bit more about building confidence and finding your personal gig. I love this kind of brainstorm activity. So before we get into some of the more interactive handouts, I want you guys to start thinking like an entrepreneur. Start thinking about what type of gig you could have. So this is a great way to start that. If you were offered $5,000, I feel like that's a pretty solid amount of money, $5,000 to speak about a particular topic for 30 minutes on the fly, no research, what could you talk about? I want you guys to put it in the chat. What could you talk about for 30 minutes without any preparation? What's a topic that you know so much about that you could earn that $5,000? I could talk about college admissions, obviously, programming, awesome. I could also talk about reality TV. I love reality TV, all kinds of it. There's a particular show you're interested in, I could probably talk about that. I could also talk through a recipe, how to make something, because I really like to cook. What is something that you know so well you could talk about it for 30 minutes? I have a couple of responses here. I'm going to wait for a few more. Tennis. Okay, awesome. You guys have some good ones. Your own life and experience, absolutely. What would be something you could monetize as a part of your life experience? Social media marketing, awesome, great example. Choir, great. You guys have some awesome things. Keep thinking about this in the back of your head as we go through some of the additional worksheets, as we work through the rest of this presentation. A lot of what we're going to talk about tonight as is a part of being an entrepreneur is how confident do you feel about your particular skill set? How do you know how to sell yourself? And that's a part of what of being an entrepreneur and having an entrepreneurial mindset really means. So we're going to move on to the next part of our presentation, which includes your essential skills handout. I put that in the chat before. I'm going to link it for you all again. And if you guys don't mind, I would love if you could give me a thumbs up or a happy face in the chat that you've all got it, so that we can open and start working. Your skills handout is not fillable. Thank you. So you might need to open it just to look at it, or if you had time to print it ahead of time, that's awesome too. Your skills handout is an inventory that I'm going to give you all actually some time to complete. One thing that I know working with students previously is that sometimes you don't even know what skills you have or what skills you're working to get. I'm going to put that in the chat one more time for you guys. There we go. So this handout goes through a variety of different scenarios. You guys are actually going to rank as you look at the different skills that are listed. If you have a question about what a particular skill is, I'm happy to answer that for you, but it's divided into a few different sections. I'm actually going to stop my share screen and pull it up for you guys to see. The skills handout looks like this. So to start, you guys are going to rate yourself in these types of skill qualities. So you're going to be rating a 3 if you feel like this is the skill you definitely have. You are highly skilled in this area. You're going to place a 2 if you feel like I kind of have that, I'm working on it, but I know what it is and I think I can do it. Or a 1 if that's not something that you do very much and you probably need to work on that particular skill or particular area. So I'm going to put a timer up and let you guys take a few minutes to go through and actually rate yourself in all of these areas. On the right-hand side over here, you're actually going to total each section to see where your strongest skills are. And eventually, what are your top 3 highest scoring categories? We're not going to do this bottom piece together here, but I will send you guys some follow-up information and some websites to use where you can look up your particular skill set and what additional occupations require that skill set. So hang tight for this part. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to work through this and try and see which 3 categories are the highest scoring in terms of your current skill sets, okay? I'm going to put that timer up here. It has a nice little beep, so you'll hear it. And then we'll be back in about 3 minutes to talk about the skill sets that you all have, okay? All right, everybody. I know we had some attendees who were not able to look at the skills sheet. Let me know in the chat if you guys are all good or if you need some additional time. We definitely have time if you need another 3 minutes to keep going and keep looking through this handout. I don't want you to rush. I want you to do it the best that you possibly can. You guys let me know in the chat. Do you need more time or are we all good? Need more time. Okay, I'm going to reset that timer. No problem. I'll give you guys another few minutes. And then when you hear the beep the next, we'll keep moving on. Okay. All right, everybody. How are we doing? Let me know if we're all good or if we need a little bit more time. How are we doing? A little bit more time? Okay, I'm gonna, instead of setting the timer one more time, I'm actually gonna walk you through what my top 3 skill sets are, because sometimes I think it helps to hear from others what their experience is too. I love this handout, so keep working as you guys listen, and then we're actually going to share a little bit together in the chat. So whenever you finish, feel free to share what your top 3 categories were. When I did this assessment, my top 3 categories were communication, leadership, and teamwork. Those were not surprising to me at all. I work as a part of a team of counselors. We're a small team. There's only 4 of us. so we work very closely together. That also means that our communication has to be on point. We have to be able to give each other deadlines and boundaries and be able to effectively work through all of the projects that we tackle together as a group. Leadership is also not surprising to me because we get to oversee Futureology, which is a program for our entire district. We make a lot of important choices and decisions for students, and we take that very seriously. I'm not surprised by my results at all, but I'm very interested to hear if any of you were surprised and what your top 3 categories are. So whenever you are ready, please feel free to put in the chat what your 3 skills categories are currently. Let me know. You guys are still working a little bit, that's great. For our next activity, I'll make sure that we have enough time. What are your top 3 skill sets? Where are they? Does anybody have technology skills? Ooh, leadership. Yeah, we do have some technology skills. Awesome. You were not too surprised. Okay, that makes sense. Anybody else finished and would like to share what their top 3 skill set areas are? I think professionalism is one of the hardest ones, just because you have to have a lot of work experience to know what some of those skill sets are. Teamwork, leadership, and communication. Awesome, Sophia, great. Not surprised. Most of these assessments or activities that we do shouldn't be too surprising as long as you're answering honestly about yourself. So that's great to hear. As we keep going as a part of our presentation tonight, we're going to have one more activity like this that's a little bit more interactive. So I'll make sure that we give at least 6 minutes, if not a little bit more time for you guys to complete it. And this one is also fillable, so it's a little bit easier to do while you're already on your computer, okay? Moving on to the next part of our presentation, we're going to talk about creating your elevator pitch. And I'm actually going to introduce our special guest tonight, Rita, to discuss a little bit more about this. So Rita, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, Kristen. Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I didn't give you a very, ambitious introduction, but would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more so that our students get to know you a little bit better? Because what you do is so cool.
Sure. So I'm Rita Sultanian, and I'm the director of our Career and Reentry Center at Saddleback College. And I have been a career counselor for about 15 plus years, and then I moved in to serve in leadership roles in student services. So that's my background. I have an extensive knowledge of career development and student development theory. And I have actually also been in a position of being an entrepreneur, which is kind of exciting and relevant to this presentation. I love to see that so many of you are interested in becoming entrepreneurs, because really the data is showing us that in our current economy, that it's much more likely for individuals to want to become entrepreneurs and, manage their life in that way. And I actually was a voiceover artist, and I did some session singing and commercials in the
I didn't know that,
industry.
Rita.
Yeah, when I lived up in LA. So this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, because I think not only do people want to become entrepreneurs, but oftentimes you want to do more than one thing with your life, right? So you might have a traditional 40-hour-a-week job, kind of like I do, but you might also have your own business on the side where you're doing other things. So this is incredibly important.
What a cool gig.
It was really fun.
I'll let Rita take it away. She is going to walk you guys through some of the rest of our presentation tonight, including what is an elevator pitch and how to create one.
All right, thank you. So creating an elevator pitch, this is a really exciting topic. I think it's really important for all of us to be familiarized with what this is. You can see here the definition is that it is a brief but thorough description of your value proposition. So a value proposition is a term that's typically used in entrepreneurship, and it basically means it describes what value you bring to an employer, an organization, or to a professional of interest. So being able to describe that value succinctly and being able to articulate those skills that you can bring into a situation is a life skill that you're going to carry with you throughout the course of your career. So the earlier you learn how to do this, the better, because you're going to be able to practice and get better and better at it. The concept of the elevator pitch. Oh, I can turn on my camera. It's not letting me. So if you can give me the power, I will be happy to show my camera. Let me know. So the concept of the elevator pitch is if you were to walk into a building today and hop on the elevator, let's say you're riding up to X, Y, or Z floor, and there happens to be another person standing in the elevator with you, and you discover that that person is the CEO of your dream company. Let's say you've always wanted to work for Disney, and that person is there in the elevator right with you. Well, what is it that you would say to that person, right? How would you be able to pitch yourself? What would you think to explain about who you are and why you should be considered to work with this person? So that's where this concept comes from. The timing is that you have literally the course of the elevator ride to explain who you are and express what your value is. So entrepreneurs that start their own businesses, they literally spend hours crafting and practicing their 60-second elevator pitches. And typically they're describing the product or services that they're offering to their clients or customers. But as individuals, we got to describe the value that we bring to any given situation. Why do we need an elevator pitch? Well, we need to be prepared to, again, concisely explain that proposition because we don't know who we might meet at any given day or time. And any person you come across could be a potential connection to your next gig or your next job or opportunity. So that's a really exciting thing to think about. And so that's why we want to make sure we're ready for that situation. Another thing to note is there's a concept called the hidden, quote unquote, hidden job market. And that just means that probably anywhere from 60 to 80% of jobs are not actually posted in online ads. So when you get ready for your job search one day down the line, you'll note this. And what we find is that being able to network and cultivate those relationships that you need to be building with people, both locally and now even globally with technology, is going to be critical in helping you connect with the right people so that you can actually get connected to the next job or gig that you'll be able to take on. So we want to take advantage of that hidden job market and be able to network as much as possible to get personal connections and even referrals to that next job opportunity. So I think we can go to the next slide. All right, so it is definitely more challenging than it sounds to just sort of pitch yourself, right, in 60 seconds. So the steps that we're going to take in order to develop this, we're going to be very intentional about the structure of this conversation. The first part of the elevator pitch starts with introducing yourself and also your goal or your objective. The second part is listing your strengths or your skills, and you can use that handout you just worked on to identify some of the skills. You can either use the broad categories or even some of the descriptions within them, the particular elements under each of those broad skills can be used in this pitch. The third step is to identify what skills and passions you have, and then include even examples of problems that you can solve for an employer that you might want to work for using those very unique skills. And then, of course, you want to pull all that together, and then you're going to write that 60-second pitch, a little draft, or maybe a short paragraph that covers the ways that you could be an asset to an employer or even a client, a future person who wants to buy into your services or products for you entrepreneurs out there, using those unique attributes. So after you have that sort of summary written, of course, we want to practice it as much as possible. The more you can even read it out loud to yourself in front of a mirror, in front of a Zoom camera, in front of your friend, your roommate, your parents, a teacher, and get that feedback, As you practice, you'll start to realize, what's most effective about it and what can I revise and change so it's a little more clear. So that'll help get that experience to be able to make connections a little easier in the future. So I can see that in the chat, we've included the next flyer for you, and that is the elevator pitch handout. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on this handout so that you can develop your own pitch. So I think we can go to the next slide here. And yes, you can download a copy and go ahead and type right into the document. So you'll see here, it's broken up into sections that we just discussed. So you're first going to write a line on who am I? So an example is, hello, my name is Rita Sultanian, and I am the director of a career center at a local community college, right? Hello, I'm John Smith, and I'm a student at Aliso Niguel High School, whatever it may be. You're then going to write out your objective. I'm interested in, and go ahead and fill in that blank. I'm interested in finding an internship in the field of, entertainment and marketing. I don't know. Then you're going to jot down what are your strengths or your skills. So again, feel free to use that handout and get in there and write down specifically, in my academic coursework, I've gained the skills of communication, teamwork, and leadership. And I feel I'm a great writer and would be able to connect with various disciplines across your company. I'm really interested in using those skills to be able to write for an entertainment publication in Los Angeles. Something like that. I'm making it up. But you can see a great example right here as well. And then finally, go ahead and jot down what is my passion. So what skills actually make you unique? So this one is beautiful. I want to make a difference by helping people understand how their actions affect our planet. I have experience in social media marketing and using ... such and such skills to be able to generate, or how about inspire change and movements around sustainability and environmental change. I don't know. So let me know in the chat if you have any questions. Otherwise, I think you can use this handout. Go ahead and, again, download it and type right in. We're going to give you 3 minutes again. And I think we're able to give you more time if you need it. So yeah, go ahead. All right. So I think we're out of time. Maybe you can type in the chat again if you feel you need more time or if you're okay. Let me know how you're doing. All right. So I'll assume that we're all okay and we'll go ahead and move forward. Great. Awesome. I'd love also to hear some comments from you on what that process was like. I don't know if you've ever written one of these before or any of these phrases, but do you have any initial reflection or reaction to writing some of these things down? You can again go ahead and type in the chat for us. I'd love to hear how that went for you. I know that when I was a student and I started putting together these types of conversations for the first time, I thought, what am I skilled at? Gosh, I don't really know. And I sort of figured anything I thought of, like, can't everybody do that? And what you come to realize is no, not everybody can do it because every single one of you is unique and you have wonderful skills and strengths that you have to offer. So sometimes it's just a matter of culling it out and being able to identify and articulate that. Yeah, I see that comment. I totally hear you. It's hard to identify your skills sometimes, especially if you're thinking it for the very first time. And again, difficulty recognizing skills. Awesome. I'm so glad you guys are here. This is perfect. One of the things that I would recommend for those of you who had a hard time thinking of those skills, well, first you can continue to use that handout. Sometimes it's good just to see them written out in front of you and to be able to pick and circle the ones that you think are relevant. But also you could speak to some people that you know and that you trust. Someone like your parents, your guardians, maybe a neighbor you know really well, friends, you know, siblings have grown up with you and they know you really well, maybe even like a teacher or a faculty member that you've had in the past. And you could potentially ask them, like, I really enjoyed taking your class, teacher so-and-so. Would you mind giving me some feedback as to where you feel like I excelled in the course and where you feel like I could use some improvement? And then they can give you some honest feedback about who you are and what they see in you. And oftentimes hearing it reflected back to us can be a little bit easier than having to sort of sit and just think about it in our own minds, because sometimes we don't really have that perspective of seeing that that's really a valuable strength you have that goes above and beyond maybe somebody else in the same shoes. And I think all of you have amazing skills. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. You already took initiative, which is a fabulous skill, to be here this evening. So thank you so much again for being here. And yeah, I would just encourage you to continue to have those conversations and identify them as you go. Another person that can tell you are people at volunteer organizations or your church that you've worked at, even in leadership roles like a student club or organization, maybe even any part-time jobs that you've had. So sometimes at my part-time job of being a gift shop clerk when I was in high school, my boss would sort of point out like, oh, Rita, you did a really great job with that. Can you do that again tomorrow? And I never really thought like, oh, she's actually pointing out a skill that I'm good at, and that's why she wants me to do it again. So those are the kinds of comments you want to pay attention to. So a few more do's and don'ts for you, just as a follow-up. Make sure that your elevator pitch sounds effortless and conversational and natural. So what you'll realize when you read this for the first time, I know we've only written a draft, is sometimes it can sound a little awkward, like you're reading from the page, because you are for the first time, and that's totally normal. The more you practice it, again, even just in front of a mirror, reading it out loud to yourself, the more effortless it will become, I promise. Once you get more familiarized, it'll start to sound more like a conversation than something you're reading off a page or that you've memorized from a script, the more and more times you do it. Make sure that it's memorable and authentic to who you are. This comment about sincerity is really important. It opens a window to your personality and helps somebody get to know you better, right? Make sure that you write and rewrite your speech. It might change from one time to the next, or maybe your goals are going to shift. Your major is going to change. Again, totally normal and perfectly okay. Just make sure you rewrite your elevator pitch so that, again, anytime you come in contact with someone who can help progress your career forward, you're sort of ready to go with that pitch of how you've shifted your mind. Make sure you maintain eye contact with your listener. So keeping that eye contact to see that you're connected and engaged with that person is really critical. And make sure you take it slow. So one of the things I hear from students, especially when they start reading these for the first time, is, gosh, I didn't realize how much I use the word or like, or, at the end of my phrases. And it's something we all do as qualifying language to sort of fill in the space where we're nervous or can't really remember what to say. Again, the more you practice, the easier that will become. And knowing that you can take it slowly will help you to give yourself permission to take some breaks in your pitch so that it will sound a little more seamless and intentional. As far as our don'ts, make sure you don't get bogged down with industry jargon or acronyms that your listener may not know or understand. Don't hesitate to develop different versions of this elevator speech for different situations and even different people. And also don't miss out during networking opportunities by not having one ready to go, right? We don't want to be in that position. And finally, don't ramble. Sometimes when we're nervous, we talk really fast and we tend to ramble on. Again, familiarizing yourself as much as possible with that pitch will help you stay on track more often than not. What I find from students is they'll do it the first time and they're like, whoa, that was overwhelming. But literally, even just the second time you read it through, I promise you, it's going to feel so much easier and so much better because you're going to be all that much more used to it at that point. Next slide. And a couple of other reminders. Here's our practice, practice, practice. I promise it will get easier. You'll probably write several drafts before you do get it right. Again, make sure you revise. When you're comfortable, practice it with people that you know and that you trust and ask them for your feedback. Even your supervisors, if you're on an internship or if you're doing work-based learning. Make sure you leverage ways to market yourself. So once you have your pitch ready to go, what if you started using a platform like LinkedIn or Twitter to be able to engage with people in the professional world? You can use some of your pitch to be able to share with people. You can even use it when you're talking to your hairdresser and start talking about what you're interested in, because you never know. The next client who's in the seat after you might be the next person who can offer you your next internship. It'll be pretty amazing. You'll see those results will start coming around if you just get used to practicing. Next slide. Another important thing to remember when you're in person is that an elevator pitch is not just a verbal conversation. So I think there are varying statistics on what percentage of our communication has to do with what we're saying with our mouth. There's a huge percentage of that conversation that actually happens non-verbally. So what that means is the body language we use when we're doing our elevator pitch is also incredibly important. So you always want to make sure you square yourself. Again, maintain eye contact with your listener. Make sure that you have very open body language and that you're presenting yourself in sort of a relaxed way. Sometimes what we find when we're nervous is like we might cross our arms a little bit, and you could see even here, I know it's via Zoom, so it's hard to tell, but this might give the appearance or impression that you're a little closed off or nervous. If you're sort of tilting your head or not facing them square on, it could appear that you're being very hesitant or kind of hiding something. Looking up a lot or looking away from the person can indicate like maybe boredom or disinterest. And sometimes we just don't notice that we have some of these quirks that we never really thought about before. So that's another thing that you'll want to ask for feedback on when you're practicing this elevator pitch with some of the people that you know. Consider after writing this and practicing it that you can also use it to craft an email introduction to other professionals you may come in contact with. You can even use it in your cover letter drafts, which is really great. And even social media messaging and marketing. So even in your Twitter bio, if you're starting to engage in the professional social media marketing world, you can write a bio that has a statement from your elevator pitch. And that's a really nice transition. Honestly, if you're developing your LinkedIn profile for the first time, you can probably adapt this elevator pitch to just be your summary that you directly include in your profile page, which is really exciting. And then you can also incorporate into your applications on job boards as well. So yeah, I think that's all I've got on elevator pitch.
Thank you so much, Rita. That was so helpful. And like Rita has stated over and over, and as part of the presentation states, this is just the beginning. This is to help all of you understand the starting point for some of these skill sets and some of the things that you can use as a part of someone who's entering the working world. So continue to look at these options, these templates, those skill handouts like Rita said. If you are interested in any more information about social media marketing and messaging in particular, in our first presentation for 21st Century Skills, we talked about digital fluency. So like I said, this is a part of a 3-part series of a presentation. We're actually coming to wind down to the very end. Our first one, like I said, we talked about digital fluency and citizenship, which has a lot more specifically to do with crafting emails, social media marketing, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And so if you have any questions about that in regards to entrepreneurial mindset or selling yourself, please feel free to go back and watch that presentation anytime. It is linked on our website. The next 21st Century Skills is our 3 of 3 that's coming up in the next month, is going to be about adaptability. And what does adaptability mean? How do you practice it and how do you use it? That one will be on April 15th. If you enjoyed this one, we highly recommend you come to our last one for the year as well. In addition to our 21st Century Skills presentations, we also revamped our career series, which is happening in concurrent Thursdays. So next Thursday, if you enjoyed learning about entrepreneurial mindset, next Thursday, we're going to have our panel presentation, which includes 3 entrepreneurs that are coming to chat with us about their career journeys, what their current situation is like in their world of work, and what it took for them to get there. We have 2 small business owners and a tech entrepreneur who are super, super cool. You are more than welcome to go head to our Instagram after we're done this evening to read more about their bios that are posted there. But they'll be joining us next Thursday. If you found that this was helpful and you want to hear some more information about a particular skill that you think you might want to have for your future career path, or a particular job or internship or network that you'd like to build. So it's an awesome way for you guys to learn more of the applied skills than just the things that we talked about this evening. In addition to that, there's a little exit survey that I'm also going to post in the chat. It's going to be linked in your follow-up email as well, but please feel free to do that exit survey for us. It helps us make presentations for you that are based on the things that you all want to listen to, that you all want to learn more about. So I'll post that in the chat in just a second, and then I'm just going to leave it open for questions. You guys are feel free to use the Q&A or the chat to ask questions, and both Rita and myself will be here to answer or clarify anything else that you have in terms of your concept about entrepreneurial mindset. So I'll leave that open for you all, and I'll actually put your exit survey in the chat in just one moment. So if you have any questions, please feel free. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you don't have questions, you're more than welcome to exit our presentation this evening nice and early. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please feel free to complete the exit survey as you leave. Thanks, guys. Doesn't look like we have too many questions, Rita, which is great. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Yeah, that was awesome. I hope that was all right. I know we were sort of not doing as much of the